All right, welcome. This is Ben Waddell here. I wanted to give you a brief introduction to coding for field notes, which is the pre-workshop exercise that we're going to be doing to get ready for the workshop that we're going to do on July 11th. This exercise is very simple, and yet there are a lot of steps. So I thought it would be great to create a video so that you can go back and listen to this again if need be. The basic idea of this is to help you practice coding your team's survey results, and specifically the qualitative open-ended answer results that you were able to capture in your survey. So please follow these steps. First, so looking here at number 1, open up a Word document and save the new file under the title Analytical Notes. In that document, please type out Analytical Notes 1 followed by the date. So for example, Analytical Notes 1 underscore 07/02/2020. Keep this file open. Then proceed to Qualtrics. Now this is step 2. So Qualtrics is the website that allows you to access the data from the survey. It sounds like most of you have already been playing around with this, so you probably have this information. Go ahead and get into Qualtrics. There's the username and password. And once you're in there, click on Hope in the Alamosa survey, and then click on the Reports tab. So I actually want to pull that up so I can show it to you in real time, just so that you have a sense of what this looks like. So if I go over here and I pull up Qualtrics, so here I am in Qualtrics. I'm going to actually log out and then log back in so that you see me coming in from the beginning. So if I go into Qualtrics, like I said, I want you to click on Hope in Alamosa, Spanish, not Spanish survey, Hope in Alamosa, the survey here with 218 results. So click on that. And then once you're in, I want you to go to, you go into reports and then click on results. So I'm gonna go ahead and go to reports. You can see me with the cursor over here. And then I'm going to go to results. And so now we're here in results, and so you can really see the results for any question that you want. So if you want to go to question 28, which is about I am happy with life, you can go to that and you can see how people responded. This was a categorical question, so people either agreed, disagreed, strongly disagreed, or strongly agreed, so you can actually see charts. What I'd like for you to do is to just start playing with the visualization tool here. So you'll see that there's a visualization tool, so where my cursor is. And if you go over to your results, you can click on any of these. Like if you have a categorical response like question 28, you can click on it and it'll bring up this panel on the right hand side, and then you'll see visualization. So you can visualize it as a chart, a bar chart like you're seeing here. You can do a pie chart, which will give you a little bit different visualization of what's the overall responses. So you see 63% of people agreed with that, 31% of people strongly agreed. You can do breakdown bars, so you kind of breaks it down this way. You can do a statistical table that breaks it down in terms of what the mean was, and the maximum, the min, the variance, right? So there's different ways of looking at this. You can do this gauge chart, which is kind of fun. That doesn't mean as much because it's just showing the mean here, as you can see. So the mean was a 1.7, so it doesn't really tell us that much. So you'll notice that on some of these, 1.7 is between 1 and 2, so most people are kind of in between that, but that doesn't visualize it very well. So what I want you to do is get used to the idea of thinking about, okay, there's different ways to visualize the results from these. Now, not all questions you can visualize this way. So on these categorical questions you can, but if you're asking someone, please explain why you would not visit a healthcare provider in Alamosa, like question 26B asks, you're not going to be able to visualize it. Rather, you're going to have a bunch of longhand results, right? You're going to have actual responses, which is our qualitative data. So the categorical responses are our quantitative data, like the one we were just looking at. And now what we're looking at, what we have in front of us is question 26B, which gives us qualitative data, or kind of survey results that are written out. So you have qualitative and quantitative data here. Going back to the assignment, under step 4, once you have a handle on navigating the results section, I want you to go through each individual question and just explore the corresponding results. So literally, just go through Qualtrics, look at the different questions. Some of these you might not spend that much time on. You might get an idea of kind of how people responded in terms of their income, their partner's income, education level. This is one of those things that you can visualize pretty well. And so if we visualize a bar chart, we can kind of see, okay, well 20% of people, 22% had some college. You can see who had an associate degree, a bachelor's degree, right? So just kind of go through each question, race and ethnicity, and then go through some of these longhand questions, and just get a sense of how people are responding. I am happy with life. You can see that 63% agree. And let's go ahead and just get our kind of a handle on this. So that's question 4. What I want you to do after you've done this, right? So after you've navigated and kind of really explored the results, and this is probably going to take a while. You probably spend an hour working through steps 1 through 4. But once you've done that, I want you to go to step 5. And I want you to go into your analytical notes, which I asked you to, as you were looking through the results, to keep a note of, or notes of the trends and topics that you saw in the document. So like, as you're going through these, as you're looking through here, you might find that there, in general, people seem to say that, if they were emotionally stressed, they would visit a healthcare provider. It seems like people seem to know that they have access to healthcare providers. Or maybe you notice that there's a trend that that a large percentage of people speak English, but there's a really large percentage of people that speak Spanish and also Canjabal. So maybe language becomes something that, a theme or a topic that you see coming up. Maybe mental health becomes a theme. Maybe lack of income as a result of the economic crisis becomes a theme. But my point is as you're looking in step 4 through all of the results, I want you to start keeping notes in your analytical notes document that you started up here. Remember, you opened this document and you saved it. It's called Analytical Notes 1. In that document, I want you to keep notes on the trends and topics that you see. What are the main topics that you see coming out of these results? And then in step 5, pulling from what you wrote down in your analytical notes, please describe your top 6 reoccurring topics or themes. And so, if mental health and mental health awareness was a theme that you saw come out, then that would be one. Lack of access to education beyond high school, or I don't know exactly what you'll see come out, but I want you to do this, where you basically are pulling out the main topics that you see in the results, and you're writing the top 6 down here. So you do that, and then what I want you to do is I want you to go to step 6, and I want you to identify 1 or 2 words that captures each topic. So I want you to think of this as a code. So for number 1, mental health and mental awareness, right? So, or mental health awareness, let's say. Let's say that was one of the themes or topics that you saw. So you might code this as simply mental health, right? So mental health. And then maybe number 2 is education, EDU access. Maybe that's your code, right? And so on and so forth. So what you're doing is you have this longer description of a topic, and then you're trying to boil it down to a code. And then that code is what we're going to use to go back through the qualitative results and try and make sense of them. So this is the first step to learning how to code qualitative data, is actually creating the codes themselves. So that's what I have you doing in step 5 and 6. Now in step 7, I want you to go back into Qualtrics and identify at least 2 open-ended questions that caught your attention. And I want you to write these questions down. So let's go back into Qualtrics and let's look for some open-ended questions. Please tell us about the skills you would like to learn. This is an open-ended question, right? If money were not an issue, 51, what type of education or job training would you be interested in? So 51 is totally open-ended. So we could put here Q51. And then let's look for one more. Q. Let's see. If we go to 61, that's a categorical. Okay, Q67. So let's go and write in Q67. Q67 is another longhand. And so the question is, going back up, what changes would you like to see happen in Alamos to improve health and well-being? And you start to see all these longhand responses. So now we've identified the two questions that caught our attention, Q51 and Q67, which I'm just using an example. You can use other longhand answer questions for this in your own preparation for the workshop. But what I want you to do is actually download the qualitative data in an Excel file for each of those questions. So now you're going to go back to, here's Q68. You can go to Page Options, and you'll see Export Page As, and go over to, in this case, CSV, which is basically an Excel file. So we're going to download that. It's generating the file. Now it's available, so we're going to download it. And you'll repeat this step for your other question. But you're going to go to Downloads. You're going to see that it comes up as this Survey Test 1 file. And then you're going to see this is Q67, and it brings up all the results for this question, right? So each one of these is a separate result for the question. And so what I'm going to ask you to do is to take this and now start coding. So you created, and you're going to repeat this step, downloading the data for Q51 too, but we'll just work off of Q67 for the rest of the exercise. So now we have the data for Q67. So we're not going to work with the example of Q19. Now I'll say, okay, so now you've downloaded the data for Q67, and I want you to actually take this, and I want you to label your file. So now you've downloaded this, and it's Survey Test 1. So we're going to go ahead and save this as, and I'll just save it to the desktop, and we're going to save it as survey data, and then we're going to go Q67 so that we have a clear path here. So now we have a clear path. And what I've done basically is I've saved this, and that you'll see that it says survey data Q67, so it's now saved as I'm asking you to in the assignment. We're going to go in here, and what I'm going to ask you to do now is read back through the responses that you've downloaded in your Excel file. I want you to actually code them with your topics, or with the topic with your topic codes. And so your topic codes, what I'm highlighting here, are the codes that you developed up here, right? So go back to these, and so like mental health. So now let's go back through these results in the Excel file that you just downloaded, and let's actually look for things that relate to mental health, right? And so you might go through here, and depending on the question, so things that you'd like to see in Alamosa to improve health and well-being. Let's see, youth needs to be taken off the streets, after school programs, type of youth, anything to keep recidivism rates in our justice system limited, city-sponsored block parties, free music. Many of these things might actually relate to mental health. Let's see what our other code was. So we had education access. Let's see, we have employment access, fight against drugs, more jobs. And so this was more jobs as a response that you could bracket for and say, let's say that we created a code for employment. Let's just call it employment ops, which would be employment opportunities. And so, and maybe we just call it employ op, and that's our code, right? And so employ ops would be our code for employment opportunities. So let's bracket this, because this response speaks to that, and let's put that code in there. So now we have employ ops, which we've coded this, this response number 16, more jobs with. This is free education, so let's go in right after that response in this case, and let's go ahead and code that as well. And what you'll see is you can do this up here, and so you can go right after the education part, and let's see what our code was. It was education access. So let's go back up here, put education access. That was our code, and now we'll have a code for that, right? And so what we're doing is we're going through, and you have employment ops here that we coded, and education access that we coded, and we're putting codes in to these responses for things that really stood out to us. What eventually that's going to allow us to do is we can do searches on this, and so we can search for education access, and we'll see where that pops up. And immediately what's going to happen is it's going to go ahead and it's going to hit the line. It's going to find the line, in this case 19, where education access came up. But if it came up multiple times, if we had wrote that down, so here's workshops to teach technology. Here's another example of education access. So now we have 2 examples. So now if I search education access, I'm going to get that first example, but then it's going to shoot down to that second example as well. So notice that now I'm back on this line where I just put in the second code. And so what we can really do once we've coded our results well is we can very easily find information that is filtered according to our code. So that's the whole idea of doing this exercise. All right, so we were on step number 9, and again, what I wanted you to do was read back through the responses that you download in Excel and actually code them with your topic codes. So I give you an example here. And then after you've thoroughly coded your data, I want you to pick at least 6 quotes that just really stood out from the data that you found. So to do this, what you're going to have to do is go back to your results. Maybe you'll say, oh, okay, 22 just really, that stood out to me. And so you go up here, you go Command All, which highlights everything up there in the box that we're looking at. You copy it, and then you go back to where I'm asking you to paste this in, and you paste it over these lines. So you paste that in there. This was the response that really stood out to you. Put quotation marks around it so that it's clear that it was a quote. That's useful. We can push this. We can kind of block this over, I guess, like that, so that it's clear that this was a response. I wanted you to kind of put the code. So this is the question. So let's see. This is coming from question 67. So this is Q67. Let me get that back over here. So here we are. Let's get Q67 in there. So that's where this came from. But then I'm asking you to find the demographic data for this respondent as well. So the way in which you do that is you go, okay, so this was, this was the response that I saw here in the Excel file, and you actually go back to Qualtrics, and in Qualtrics, you'd look for that response. So the response was, I think the college campus should have more activities. So let's see. We can go to 67. Let me find this one. This might take me a second here. So I think the college campus should have, so that's our response. So to get the demographic data here, what we're going to do is actually click on this little clipboard looking thing next to the response, and then it's going to pull up the record for that response. So in this case, we'll actually see the individual's age, so 20, married. Let's start recording some of this. So this individual is female, 20, married. Let's look at married, 20, associate's degree, Mexican American, and then so married, AA, and Mexican American. And then I had looked at their joint income as well. Let's see if we can find that. What was your partner's gross income? So about 4,000 between the two of them. So clearly students. And so then we have, in addition to, we can push that over, right? So in addition to having this quote from this individual, we also know that this individual is a female. She's married, she's 20 years old, and was making about 4,000 joint income between the two of them, has an associate's degree, and is Mexican American. And so go ahead and do this. Pick 6 quotes that really stood out for you, and record the quote and information here in this space. And then finally, I want you to do a reflection. And so in that file titled Analytical Notes, I really want you to reflect on what you found challenging, what you found enlightening, what relationship you started to notice between the descriptive statistics, so the graphs and charts that you were exploring early on through the visualization ability in Qualtrics, and the relationship you see between those results and the qualitative data, the quotes, the phrases that you saw as you were working through some of these questions. What did you learn about Alamosa that you didn't already know? And then how might this process help you think about what information to include in your team's final write-up and a presentation to local officials? And this is the task. I think it'll probably take you about 2 hours. And ideally you do this before the workshop, because that will allow us to hit the ground running and we'll really be able to get as much as we can out of that 4 hours that we spend together on July 11th. I hope you have a great day. Do reach out to Tori or myself with questions, or Cody. I'm happy to answer any questions you have prior to the workshop. Really looking forward to it. See you soon. Bye.